This is my music. You either fight, fuck, or drink to it. Bounce or lean to it. MC, influence. You know how we do it. It's hip hop and superstition don't stop.
Thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's no problem.
All right, I guess we will get started. And this is my first time ever doing any type of interview thing, so bear with me.
Nah, it's cool. We'll get through it together, you know?
Yep. I have about like 15 questions. The first one is, how did you come up with your rap name?
So I came up with the name Superstition. I kind of tell this story. It was originally, when I started rapping, I used to change rap names all the time, right? Because it's just, you had your first rap name and all of those. So I actually got signed under the name of Blackmail. It was Black MEL, right?
Mhm.
And I'd signed a recording contract with a label out of Queens with, pioneered by a guy named Davey DMX, who was like a producer for Run DMC and things like that. So I ended up signing kind of in my opinion, a really bad contract earlier on. It actually prevented me from using the name, Blackmail or releasing music because I was in such a contract situation with them where I couldn't release music and it was just things fell out. So um, during that time, well, actually before that time, I was recording music with one of my first producers by the name of Eric Hood, who's also from Philly. He passed away like 3 years ago. And we had a song called Superstition. And it was one of those songs where I always listened to. And so when I couldn't use the name Blackmail, I was like, I've got to come up with a new name, right? But at that time, I had done a lot of, just work through the music industry and through the local scenes and things like that, and I was like, I have to change my name. They was like, you can't change your name, like it'll be like starting over, right? And it was, and the name Superstition stuck because I felt like some people believe in superstition, some people don't, right? And it was one of those things where I wanted to start over. So that's where I really came up with the name. It actually came from an older song, not the Stevie Wonder song. I had written a song back probably like a little bit after high school called Superstition. So the name just stuck, So,
Because I know from like some of the songs that me and my dad listened to, you had Cam Moy or it was
yes.
by like Superstition. So was that like also kind of like the same thing in terms of like, I think I want to go by my real name. Well, actually,
Yeah.
so like was that kind of like the same thing or
Yeah, so that was a little bit different situation. So during that time, like when I was recording under Superstition, like I've always owned the name Superstition and I own 99% of all of my music, with the exception of the one song, The Williams. So when I decided to do the Cam Moy project, what had happened was I was in Durham. I still remember it. It's like me and my wife, we were in Durham. We had just came from a show from Duke University, ended up having a car accident, and just I saw my life flash before me, right? And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I want to make some more positive music, but I didn't feel like it would fit the superstition kind of theme of music. Even though my music is somewhat inspirational, I
Mhm.
always remembered seeing my favorite artists like Run DMC rapping like Naughty by Nature. And I was just like, nah, I never wanted to do this. So the kind of the play on Cam Moy was like, how Madlib has all these different names and aliases. I wanted to do an alias, and my alias would actually be my real name, right? Because I wanted to keep things straight. So I did my first project, Self-Centered, which was an EP under the name Cam Moy. It did really, really well, and I actually ended up getting signed. So I signed to them as Cam Moy, but when we were about to put the album out, one of those things in the music industry is like kind of having a retail history. Cam Moy didn't have albums out, but Superstition did. So
Mm.
the compromise with them was, well, you can be Cam Moy, but you've still got to attach this Superstition to it, which to me didn't make sense. That was the whole purpose of moving away from it. So I actually, like I said, recorded that album under the name Cam Moy. And it was a decision. I wouldn't say it was a mistake, but it makes me really easy to find right now because I'm not 100% musician or things like that. I remember like working a job, and one of my coworkers was listening to Pandora and the name Cam Moy came up and he was like, Cam, you rap? I was like, nah. He showed a picture of it. It's like me, the name Cam Moy. So yeah, Cam Moy was always like, it's my real name, but I did it more as an alias. So in the music industry, I'm always kind of Superstition.
That's really crazy how I guess like even though they're both like it's you, they're viewed as two different people. Like that's interesting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know
So
that.
yeah, because legally with contracts, a lot of times, depending on what type of contract you sign, they can own your name, they can own your likeness, they can own, everything that has your face on it. And so for me, I remember talking to a lawyer back when I was doing a whole blackmail superstition thing, and he was like, the one thing I can tell you is just not to use that name, record under something else and things like that. So I signed a one album deal with I think it was mixed music for the Cam Moy album, but I still kind of kept all my rights and stuff like that too. So that was the only two projects that I did under that. But I guess it caused some confusion because a lot of people first discovered me as Cam Moy, right? So and then I
Wow.
ended up going back to Superstition, which kind of confused people or whatever. So and that was really earlier on. I see people now like doing albums under their real names, and people like, I love it. I'm like, yeah, y'all didn't give me the same grace.
Right, exactly. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. What does hip hop mean to you?
All right. Hip hop for me means self-expression, right? Just the term hip hop itself, I don't even associate it to necessarily music. I associate it to culture because making something hip hop is like the cool thing about hip hop is we can take anything and make it hip hop, right? Like if we decided tomorrow we wanted to wear fishing gear, right? And somebody puts it on, we can make that hip hop. If we wanted to wear ski goggles, which we have in the 90s, right? It's almost like we take any type of thing, any type of genre of music, we could flip it and make it hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the beauty of hip hop. It's just putting our stamp and our culture on it. You know what I mean? And hip hop has always been a voice of the streets. And hip hop to me is just creativity, taking something like they always say hip hop didn't invent anything, but it recreated and reinvented everything, right? So I think that's what's gonna always keep hip hop fresh. As long as there's other things that we can pull from and be inspired by, I think hip hop is always gonna last. And that's for music, that's for fashion, cars, anything you look at it, right? You could just
Right,
somebody could walk in and you could just be like, yeah, that's a hip hop, that's a hip hop head, right?
right,
Like
right, exactly. If you could name like your top five, who would it be?
all right, so in no particular order, because I
Yeah, no, no,
always
no.
have trouble, right?
Yeah, no.
So to me, my greatest rapper of all time will probably always be Rakim.
Mm,
And he wasn't the first rapper I heard, of course, but I saw how hip hop shifted when Rakim came in because, before it was kind of like, Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC, everybody's kind of, they always had the the radio voices, like, but you know what I'm saying? They always kind of kept that kind of almost like, I don't know, it's just like a rhythmic kind of sing-songy type of flow, right? But
mm,
then Rakim came in and with Check Out My Melody and Eric B as president, and it just changed everything. I mean, the monotone flow, the way he carried his voice, just using multi-syllables, like it was just Rakim's always gonna be my guy. And I would say that too because I became a fan of Rakim without ever knowing what he looked like, unless I saw an album,
mm.
and it was just one of those things. So when I finally saw him, he just looked like the coolest person on the planet at this time. And I was like, I don't know if I can ever be like him, but I want to be that guy. Like he
Mm.
didn't do a lot of features. He wasn't into a lot of extracurricular things. He just showed up, rapped, and went home. He didn't do a lot. You know what I mean? I could probably give you my number one. That's going to be Rakim. Probably in my top five, Run DMC, because those were the first guys I ever saw that made me want to do hip hop. Like
Mm.
Melly Mel and Grandmaster Flash and all those guys was cool, but I always say like they dressed back then like disco singers. They dressed like the people my mom, my aunts and uncles used to listen to, and I was like, I don't wear leather pants with feathers. I don't want to do that. So when I see Run DMC, they look like the cool guys in my neighborhoods. They looked almost like the drug dealers in my neighborhood. So I would say Rakim, Run DMC. I always say the three R's. Redman. Redman is one of the people that when I first heard Redman, it was like he was hardcore, but he was also funny at the same time.
Yeah.
And just to be able to balance it out, like he would, he was undeniable on the mic, but he would say something just ridiculous to make you laugh. So, Redman, then also, and I always shout this brother out, is Master Ace. Um,
Oh, yes.
yes.
Yep.
So Ace came out. Um, I was a huge, I was already a huge fan of Rakim. I love the Juice Crew. I love G Rap, Big Daddy Kane, Craig G, and everybody. Master Ace really resonated with me. And I think because I always rooted for the underdogs, right? So while
Mhm.
my friends was, Kane, supporters and diehard fans and G Rap fans, and which I was too, Master Ace Take a Look Around was one of those albums I just played over and over because it had concepts to it. And then I think naturally our voice sounded similar as I began to, rap and, come up in my 20s and things like that. So we got what Rakim, Redman, Run DMC, Master Ace, and the fifth one would have to be Andre 3000. And
Mhm.
I know it comes as left field, but as someone who was born and raised in the South, um, prior to that, of course, I listened to Scarface, to Ghetto Boys, and different things like that. Andre 3000 was one of those people that whenever a song came on, I never knew how he was gonna rap. I never knew he never used the same cadence, and no matter what the beat was or who was on a song, he always delivered an incredible verse. And Big Boy as well, but Andre was one of those ones where if I'm stuck and I want to figure out how I want to rhyme, I'll go back and listen to an Andre verse. It's just like, just that inspiration. So that's probably my top five.
Definitely, because I actually wasn't expecting to hear Master Ace. This is like part of the reason why I'm even like making this like blog in the first place, because I feel like rappers like you guys deserve more
Thank you.
recognition and stuff like that. And my peers, obviously, like they're listening to this newer rap, which is fine, but it's also good to like go back and listen like to the old school rappers, or like people
Hmm.
who are just coming up, or like just stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so, and I obviously was raised on that, and like
Yeah.
my dad and everything.
Yeah.
So, but I want my peers and other people to kind of like, I guess, have more of a open mind when it
Yes.
comes to hip hop.
Or even like then, back in like 80s and 90s. And I know it kind of gets lumped all into one category, but it was a lot of versatility back then because,
Mhm.
everybody, for the most part, you didn't get applauded for sounding like someone else. I mean, then we did have some copycat
Mhm.
rappers. I mean, it was back then, there was people who wanted to rap exactly like Rakim, and I get it. But, I could throw on NWA, I could also throw on Public Enemy, I could throw on almost anybody, Big Daddy Kane or whoever, and they didn't rap about the same thing. So when they finally started collaborating together, it just made things even more incredible. And I think one of those things with kind of new artists, and I don't bash a lot of new artists. I understand it, but I also feel like if we don't take music and our talents serious, it makes us easily replaceable. And I say that because if we don't look at the person who rhymes and the person who's the most skillful, if you don't look at him as one of the top rappers, then anybody could come in and become a top rapper, right? Or,
Right.
this is like if I was a guitar player or piano player or jazz musician, like jazz musicians aren't going to let you come in and you only know how to play two chords, right? And they're not going to tell you you're the GOAT, you know,
Right.
after one album. Like you've got to earn it because it's looked at as just musicianship and artistry. And I feel the same way about hip hop. Like, and that's not an elitist attitude, but I feel like perfect example is you look at someone like the Alchemist, right? Alchemist produce for years. He can make almost any type of beat. But now a lot of the stuff that he's doing now, he's finding really dope loops and things like that. And there are people who are finding out about Alchemist now and being inspired by him. But a lot of those guys still they don't know how to program drums. They just go in and loop something. But it's like, look, you've got to learn how to do the stuff that he's done if you want to be Alchemist. It's like me hearing Jay Dilla for 2 years of his work or 3 years of his work, and it's like, you know, I'm gonna make beats like Jay Dilla. It's like, well, what era of Jay Dilla, right? Like, I just
Mhm.
feel like people need to. You have to take it serious. Like, it has to be a learning curve to become good at what you do. So,
What are some very important skills that any rapper should have
okay.
to be great?
Okay. Yeah. So I always encourage people too to listen to your favorite rappers, and you'll tell the difference between your favorite rapper and your favorite local rapper. So it's a few things that you have to have as an artist, right? As a rapper, right? And you know, you don't necessarily have to have all of these qualities, but you need some of these qualities to be considered good, right? For
Right.
one is an understanding of rhythm, rapping on beat, knowing how, because when you learn how to rap on beat, you can rap off beat and still land on your feet. It's almost like a cat. You throw a cat up in the air or whatever. Somehow he lands on his feet, right?
Yep.
And people like Andre 3000, he can rap all over the beat, but somehow it's still on beat and still in pocket.
Right.
So you got to understand the rhythm. Also the voice. The voice is very important, like Guru said, right? Like, you've got to have a really good voice. That's what makes people want to listen to you, right? Also charisma. You've got to have some type of charisma. That charisma separates the rapidy rappers from the superstars, right? Because, and you know, I was guilty of that for a long time. I knew how to rap and I had charisma in real life. I didn't know how to translate it into music, right? It's almost the difference between like having charisma, right? Like, you hear me rap and you hear Fonte rap. Fonte is very charismatic in real
Yep.
life, in music and things like that. And so charisma is what takes you over the top. So, you know, I think that's a very important thing as well too. Like I said, just the voice, the charisma, understanding of rhythm. And if you've got all three or four of those, then you could be, and you got to have a look too. You got to have a look in a story, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
if you got a story to go with it, oh, you're out of here, right? I'm not
Right.
getting shot 5 times though. You like, it's like, it's not
Yeah.
my story. My story is, you know, my mom went to college. You know, it's just different things like that. So,
Right, exactly. Is there someone who you haven't worked with that you would love to work with?
ooh, okay, yeah, two people. For me, because some of my top producers, just DJ Premier and Pete Rock. You know, I've met both of them. Never worked with them. I know, you know, it's for me, DJ Premier has played a couple of my records on, you know, back on Live from Headquarters and stuff like that too. And just to hear like, you know, DJ Premier shout your name out, or, you know, just to hear him playing your records is like, he knows I exist. You know, as a kid,
Right.
this is all I ever wanted. So I would love to be able to work with like DJ Premier one day or Pete Rock, because those are to me those are my two favorite producers that are still on this earth right now. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
definitely them as far as producers. As far as rappers, man, I feel like I've worked with almost everybody in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, it's mostly just producers and things like that too.
Because you have worked with a lot of people, right? It's like, who was probably like one of your favorite people to work with?
I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna just say little brother.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why. Is that, you know, not only, you know, because we come from somewhat the same, you know, we come from the same state. You know, I know Pooh's from Virginia and stuff like that too, but we came from the same state. We were just in different music scenes, and people kind of look at North Carolina as like, it's funny, like they look at NYC, LA, Detroit, then they look at North Carolina like we're a state, we're far apart, right? Like,
Right.
but I met those guys. I met Little Brother around the time I was doing my first album release party, and Big Doe, who was he's a member of the Justice League, and he was managing Little Brother at that time. I was looking for somebody to open for the show, and he connected me with Little Brother. I heard their music for the first time, and I was blown away. And it just it was so amazing because I'm so used to hearing back then North Carolina rappers, but Little Brother didn't sound like North Carolina, right? Like the sound quality was just great. They didn't sound local. Like everything was mixed great. So we connected through that. And when they came and did my album release party, we all stayed in touch. And probably for most of the time, me and Fonte was probably the tightest because of we're closer in age and things like that. And we relate with me and him talk about like he's like my A alike. You know what I'm saying? It's like we always talk about we could never battle because it's a mirror match. But
Mm,
I know anytime that I got in the studio with Little Brother, it was always a good time. Like when we recorded Rolling Out and Doing Me, we recorded those all in the same weekend, even though they came out on separate mixtapes. I drove to Raleigh and Durham and crashed at Fonte's crib for, for the weekend. And we just hit the studio the next day with Crisis and Pooh and just knocked out a bunch of songs. I got to see how they created their music. That's when I realized Fonte doesn't write. Like it's one of he doesn't even really talk about it, but he don't write anything down. So being able to work with those guys really helped me a lot. And I say not from a popularity standpoint, like I got a lot of love because I was like loosely affiliated with the Justice League, but
mhm.
hearing their first album, The Listening, made me realize that I needed to go back and get even better production. I need to go back and my sound quality needs to be good. So if you hear my first album, 7 Years of Bad Luck, and then you hear the follow up to that, The Deadline, sounds like two different completely artists. Like I said, just because I saw what Little Brother was recording on. I think that at this time they were using Cool Edit, which is like Adobe Audition. So I found somebody who had the same setup, my man Johnny Maverick in Charlotte. And so I would say those are the guys that I enjoyed recording with the most because they're like my brothers. Like,
Yeah,
outside of just music, and I think, people have seen me post about it. It's one of those things where we're family at this point, man. Like our families know each other and stuff like that, man. It's real cool.
I love that. That's so cool. And that also brings into my next question since you brought up like your work. Out of your entire discography, what is your favorite album and
Ooh.
why?
All right.
Out of everything.
Yeah, so my first one would definitely have to be Chain Letters. And I would say that because
That's my favorite.
uh oh thank you.
Yeah.
Chain Letters as an artist, always say kind of our first albums are usually the albums that we want to make. But my first album, 7 Years of Bad Luck, wasn't the album I wanted to make. It went through so many different changes and things like that. And then the Deadline that followed after that was just a collection of songs that I had because I was working on Chain Letters and we weren't going to meet the release date. So we had missed our quote unquote deadline. So they were like, hey, in order for you to put this record out, give us a couple songs and we'll just put out the deadline until you work on Chain Letters, right? So that's where the Deadline came in. But with Chain Letters, I say that because that was the rap album that I always wanted to make. It sounded like how I wanted my first album to sound with production, with subject matter and things like that. I felt like that introduced me to the world. And it would have been almost an even better album if it came out when it was supposed to come out, right? Because initially the song The Williams was supposed to be on Chain Letters, Fountain of Youth was supposed to be on Chain Letters. So it would, I think the album would have been even better. So Chain Letters is one of my favorites, probably one of my top albums. Another one would be, and this is my personal favorite, is um Gold Standard.
Mm,
And Gold Standard, I love that record because after Chain Letters, I kind of struggled to find producers because like of the situation with Chain Letters, right? It was one of my most popular albums, but the problem was when it came out, Soul Spasm lost their distributor. Like their distributor closed like I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that album dropped. So it didn't really get the push that it was supposed to get. We didn't even know how much the album had sold and things like that. And so being the fact that it didn't sell a lot, like I was working with M Phases and Ill Mind, and those guys had went on to do some great things, work with some legendary artists. So for the next few records, I was just trying to find my sound, you know. And I felt like after a while, Gold Standard was that one that I found. I had just connected with a producer named Praise out of the DMV, one half of the Speaker Bullies, and we made that record. And I felt like, you know what, this is me. This is where I want to go. So like those are some of my favorite albums, and then some of the self-produced albums that I put out. Every Last Word, All That Was Left Unsaid, because they're 100% me. At some point I decided I'm only going to rap about things that I'm living about, that things that I'm going through, and just, being vulnerable as a black man, talking about work, talking about family and things like that. It was like at some point I was like, look, if I'm going to be Superstition, I can't just be doing battle raps for the rest of my life. Like I want to make music that means something. And especially because a lot of people in my age group and a lot of my fans are becoming older at some point, like, I love West Side Gun, but I can't listen to that around my kids, right? So I wanted to provide an alternative for people who wanted to listen to like working class type of music and
Mm,
things to help push you through life and all of that. Because I feel like if I'm going through it, somebody else is going through it. So those are
right.
a couple of my favorite records.
I know that was definitely one of the reasons why my dad loved your music as
Hmm.
well, because he could relate to everything that like you were saying and like
Yeah.
and just stuff like that. And even though, well, I was like a kid, so I mean, I didn't understand everything, but I really liked your voice and how you like, like I just really love it, and that makes a lot of sense, and that also kind of makes me want to ask too, when it comes to making songs and stuff, is it hard to come up with newer things to say? How do you know, like, okay, this is what I want to say, or I've talked about this in my last one, so what should I say now?
I always say for me, it's not really tough to come up with ideas and concepts. I think probably my biggest struggle was convincing myself that people wanted to hear the things that I wanted to talk about. Like, and
Mm,
every time I've kind of taken a chance, it's become like one of my biggest songs, like Fountain of Youth. I was, this is back 2003, 2004. And I just, at the time, I was still young, but I felt like I was outgrowing hip hop. Like I didn't want to do the same things anymore and all of that. And I put that record out and it resonates. It's probably one of my biggest songs, right? I guess in younger people terms, I mean it has probably over 1 million streams across all the platforms, right? But that was a song I didn't know if I wanted to release, but I just made it for myself. And then songs like The Williams as well. But now when I go into projects now, I kind of map out what I want to say. I don't want to feel like I'm making the same record twice, and that's why I started making the records like Every Last Word and things like that, because it's only so many times I could rap and tell you that I'm dope, right? At some point, you've got to stop trying to prove it and just be dope.
mm,
So, like I have a new album coming out with a producer named RJD2. And, RJ is a pretty big producer and DJ. And but the thing with RJ is that he does more, I guess his hip hop will be considered somewhat abstract, kind of like a DJ Shadow, because he does more instrumental stuff. But that project came at the right time because as much as I love boom bap, I felt like I needed to do something else. I felt like for me it was getting stale. I was like, I don't want to make another album like this. Like even if I'm rapping about similar things, I feel like I need another kind of background. I need another soundtrack. So creating this record with RJD to really reignited just my passion for rhyming and for music, because he doesn't make Jay Dilla type beats. He doesn't make Alchemist type of beats. Like he makes RJD2 type of beats. So you've really got to be able to step in his world. He does hip hop music, he does electronic music, he does all type of genre. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays different instruments. I mean, so that to me was challenging, but in a good way, because
mhm,
now I have to learn to rhyme a certain way. And even I'm not even gonna say learn to rhyme, but now all those ways that I knew how to rhyme, I could do that. Like even singing, like I'm not Maxwell by any means, but
mm,
I can carry a tune, but you would have never known that if you listen to some of my older records, right? But now with RJ, some hooks I'm singing and things like that. I'm just doing all of these different things and just feeling free as an artist. And it came at the right time because I felt like for so long I try to do different things and everybody's like, nah, you just boom bap, scratch, hook, rap, do your thing. Like I that's cool, right?
mm,
But at some point I want to do something different. Like I'm not going,
right.
and I guess it ain't even a term of selling out, but it's like, yo, I'm not gonna compromise what I do, but I gotta be able to spread my wings at this point. Like I've proven that I'm consistent with what I do and I want to do something different. So I think people be pleasantly surprised with this RJD2 album.
I was going to ask, like, what's next? Like, is there
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
album and everything? So that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know like when it might drop? Will it be next
So
year?
we were looking towards the end of this year, but I mean it's already October. We have the vinyl already pressed up. We just shot two videos about 2 weeks ago. Sending off for CDs as well because we wanted to do those. So it'll either be at the end of the year or the start of next year. And I honestly think probably from a sales standpoint or a streaming standpoint, it's definitely going to be one of my biggest records. I mean, RJ, like I said, RJ has a huge fan base, and we've known each other for forever, for over probably 20 years.
Oh
But
wow.
he did an album not too long ago. Well, his second album he did with a rapper named STS, who's really dope. He's out of Atlanta, and they reached out to me to do a song, and I was like, I'm gonna kill this verse, right to the point where I, you know, I reached out to RJ after and I was like, hey man, I did a verse on your album. Is anyway like possible? Like I'll get a beat, just let me know what it takes. RJ sent like a folder of like, I don't know, 12, 15 beats or something like that. And so I hit him back. I was like, hey, I've narrowed it down to six. So I'll let you know. He was like, well, why don't you take all six? I was like, oh shit. Like, okay. All right, I'll take all six. And so I recorded, turned those around like immediately and they were really dope. And he was like, "Look, we don't have to stop at six songs. Like, if you want to do a whole album, let's do a whole album." I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? But it's like that kind of one of the first times I really almost like shot my shot at a producer, right? Like, hey man, let's do a project and things like that, or let's do a song together, and it turns into something fruitful. Like I've done albums that never came out. Like I've done an album with Knots that never came out. I did an album with Stoop or Jedi Mind Tricks, but this RJ record is probably, like it's something that I'm proud of because I got to see it from beginning all the way to completion and see that now it's coming out and it's about to be a real deal. So
Well, I can't wait. I'm excited. Okay.
thank you. And there's a song up there too, that I dedicate to my man Eric Hood, who passed away, and also your father as well. So um I'm gonna
Ew.
be honest, when I recorded it, I cried my heart out. I played it for my wife. She cried. So it's an amazing song. It's called Beautiful Ending. And man, yeah, that's yeah.
Well, I can't wait. And thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you. No,
speaking
it's
of your wife, since you've been rapping for a long time, was it always like, I guess, hard to like balance being a rapper while also being a husband and a father, or, you know?
I would honestly say, yeah, it was really hard for me in the beginning because, and it's for a couple reasons, right? With music, I was taught that you have to give it 110%, right? And I thought that meant giving it all your time. And so even though I was moving forward in music and I was traveling the world, I was almost doing it selfishly, not looking back at the fact that my wife was at home taking care of the kids, or I'd be missing like special events with my kids to be on tour. And I realized I had to stop thinking selfishly. One day, it hit me, and I was like, yo, maybe your point and your purpose to be on this earth is not to be a rapper. Maybe it's to pour into your kids and make them to be the next great ones, right? Like you're not always the main character in a story, right? We
Yeah.
always think we are. And then I realized that I said, well, I can't put my family's life on hold because I'm chasing a dream and things like that. And in
Right.
2015, that's when I realized when I came off of my final tour, I was like, I'm gonna put my wife through school. I'm gonna be here for my kids. And yeah, it was really tough because and I say this in full transparency. It's like 2008, 2009. I walked away from the music industry for a couple years. I was really just depressed because it was one of those things where I wanted all my life to be in the music industry and be a rapper, and then you realize that it's not all that it's cracked up to be, right?
Mm,
And it's just like, what do I do now? And I got to a point where I realized if I wanted to stop doing music, what life skills do I have? So during that time, I stopped doing music and I went out and found a job. I found a job in engineering, through one of my wife's best friends. And that actually turned into what I'm doing right now. It's very lucrative for
Mm.
me and my family. But it was one of those things where my wife was like, she was never on my back about you need to get a job or you need to get a real job. She was always to the point where whatever you want to do, no matter how crazy it sounds, just prove to me that you're not wasting your time, right?
Mm.
And my wife is one of those people. If I say I'm going to open a coffee shop, she's going to remind me every day, what's up with this coffee shop you talked about, right? If
Right.
I tell her I'm going to do music, she's not going to let me sit around the house and play video games. She's like, I thought you were working on music, right? So,
Right.
I give a lot of credit to who I am and who I've become to my wife. She's an amazing woman. She's been supportive of me since the first time she ever heard me rap. She's always been there. She's never wavered. That's my rock. That's my rock. 25 years together. Even though I've known her a little bit longer than that, she is, and people see me. I post her all the time. Just to show people that there is, forever is a real thing. Sometimes, we've gone through our hard times, and it's like in 20, 25 years, you grow, you outgrow each other, you change. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's not even to sound like, all mushy, but you got to continue falling in love with each other. You got to continue
Right.
liking each other. Like we around each other all the time. So, but yeah, so I finally feel like I found a balance, and I realized that more than anything, I just want to take care of my family. That's the reason why I was put on this earth. And music is extra, right? I do music when I have time to do music, but family, I have to be a husband and father every single day. So
Right. I love that. And then when it comes to your kids, right? Have any of them like since like seeing like that you rap, right? Do any of them have like any type of interest within the music or anything?
um my oldest daughter, she did it for a little while. I've always tried to be honest. I always try to keep my kids away from music and from hip hop. My oldest daughter, she probably listens to probably everything young people listen to right now. You know what I'm saying? Like my middle child is my daughter. She listens to more maybe K-pop. You know what I'm saying? Like I always have to realize too that when she was raised, we lived in Charlotte, and most of the time she was with her Asian grandparents, right? So you know, she doesn't listen to a lot of hip hop. Well, she listened to some of it, but she always kind of heard me doing it and always respected it. She just didn't realize, like to me, I'm just her dad, right? And it's
Right.
it's weird because people come to her and they're like, "Your dad's superstition," like My son, my youngest son, anything like gamer music he plays, but for the most part, none of them are hip hop heads, which I'm cool with that. I'll play it around them, but I is I never played a lot of profanity around my kids, and I don't curse around my kids a
Mhm.
lot either. So when it came down to playing hip hop, I'd be able to play like Kev Brown around him because Kev doesn't curse, Shad, different people like that, or R&B and soul. But they've mostly heard a lot of that. More recently, especially my middle child and my youngest child got to see me perform for the first time over the past 2 years, and it was amazing. It was an amazing feeling for him. Like I actually booked a show at an anime convention because I know they love anime, and it was kind of seeing me in that element and performing from in front of my kids was like one of the best feelings in the world, right? It was bucket list thing. So
Oh, yay. I love that. Yes. What's some advice that you would give to someone who is trying to make it out in the music industry, including me too, because that's what I really want to do. And of course, like I've always been told like that it's very hard
yeah,
and it comes with a lot of stuff. But what is
yeah.
some advice that you would give me or to anybody else like wanting to pursue within that career?
So one of the first things I would tell you is that decide why you're doing it, right? You have to decide why you want to do it. For one, it's because that's going to kind of determine your career trajectory, right? If you say, I just want to interview only the best artists and the quality artists, or if you're a musician and you say, hey, I just want to make the most authentic, dopest music possible, you have to accept that that decision alone is going to limit your opportunities and it's going to limit the money that you make, right?
Mm.
But it also will bring you happiness that a lot of people may not face. I mean, a lot of people may not have. So, if you decide this is what I'm going to do, I want to be the most popular, the most famous of whoever I'm going to be, then by any means necessary, without selling your soul, of course, you have to do what you have to do. One thing that, I would say, and I speak from experience on this, is that you can't say that I'm only going to be this type of artist. I'm only going to do this. I'm not going to compromise. But you
Mm,
can't be angry when the money's not coming in, right?
right.
It's like me going out right now and saying, I'm going to open a restaurant and I'm only going to sell a particular item, right? But then I
Mhm.
can't be mad if nobody wants to buy that item. Like you might get a few people and things, and it's just like, well, people don't support, but that's not the truth, right? It's
Right.
you're selling to a very small niche artist or niche audience, shall I say. So I would say for younger people, just to realize why you want to do it. And once you have that why, then you can plan out the rest of it. Now there's going to be some tough days. If you care about integrity and quality and anything that you do in the music industry, that's going to limit your growth and your opportunities. But like I said, if you want to be famous, then there's certain things you're going to have to do to be famous, right? I was never personally willing to do a lot of things that came to being famous, right? And then also, very importantly, people don't tell you this. Choose something that reflects your personality.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is I'm a very introverted person. I don't
okay.
know why I wanted to be popular, right? Because it started to bother me when I was younger. Well, some years back when I started getting recognized, people would run up on me. Superstition. I'm like, oh, this is weird, right? Like
Right.
some people love it, some people embrace it, and I'm always appreciative. But I'd be out with my family eating somewhere, and somebody come up to me and start talking about music, and I was like, yo, I don't know how they do this, right? So,
Mm,
like I said, choose something that fits your personality. If you have an outgoing personality, you probably have no problem being famous. But as far as people being introverted, I found myself that whenever I'd go on tour for 3 months, I'd come home and not want to talk to anybody for 30 days, right? Like it's just,
right.
you know. So, but yeah, that would be my advice.
My last question is, what do
Excuse
you
me.
want people to know about superstition?
Oh, man, that's a great question, actually. One thing is that I've always cared about the art. I still, ever since I was 9 years old, I just love to write rhymes. Like I write lyrics that will never come out. I write songs that'll never come out for the sheer purpose of practice and for the purpose of that I like it, right? I
Mhm.
always say it's like a basketball player, and I'm a basketball diehard, Tar Heels all the way. So, if you only show up to play for games, you're not going to be the best player, right? You have to practice. I actually love the exercise of writing on paper, seeing the words on paper, getting thoughts out of my head, recording them. Not necessarily just to release them, but because it's what I've always loved to do. A lot of people see that I don't release a lot of music, and it's because I don't, a lot of it isn't for the world. I don't even know how many unreleased, I would say, albums or songs because I record a lot of stuff just for me, just because I want to. It's not, it's like every time someone paints a picture, it's not for sale, right? Some things you keep
Right.
near and dear to you. So that's with me is that, a lot of stuff that I'm recording, I never want to be released because it's just personally for me. And I don't think a lot of people know that. They just kind of see my catalog and say, well, you only drop albums like every 3 years or 4 years, but I'm constantly recording. And a
Mm,
lot of stuff, like I said, I'll keep for me. There was even times where I used to record so much I would make custom CDs for your dad because I know him. He's not gonna bootleg. He wasn't no internet guy.
right.
We'd have conversations, and I was like, "Hey, man, listen to this and tell me what you like or whatever." And I'd give him a CD, and he'd always give me feedback. And you know what? None of them songs ever leaked anywhere. The ultimate trust, the ultimate support. But that's something that he knew about me as well. Is that I just love to do music. I just love to create music. As far as like an artist, sometimes I got to force myself to be an artist. Like I said, I'm a creative. That's what I like to do. So
Well, thank you. That was pretty much it.
thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out, meet with me and stuff, and answering all my questions. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I want to say, look, I'm super duper proud of you. I'm not even going. we're gonna have a moment right now. I am super proud of you because let me tell you something. The way that your dad would speak about you and EJ would light up with joy. That's why we connected so much, is because of the love that we have for our kids and for our children. And there were times we didn't even talk about music. We would just talk about, kids. My kids would act up. If y'all would act up, we would talk about it, get each other through it.
Yeah.
But no, I just want to say I'm proud of you. I'm proud of EJ. I'm honored to be on the other side of this microphone. And your dad will be so proud of you right now. Because I remember he told me one time, he's like, I told Lauren I knew you. She was like, you don't know him. He was like, that's my boy Cam. She was like, you don't know him. So that's one of the best moments I've had. It was pretty funny. And then also one time when I did the Camboy album release party, and this is the first show that my mother had ever been to. And your father was there in Charlotte, and he goes up. And my mother's an old Southern black lady, and he goes up, and I'm next to him. He's like, hey, your son Cam, he's a legend. He's a legend. My mom was like, he's a what? Like, he ain't no legend. That's my son. So, I just want to say I appreciate you. And, like I said, I'm honored to be able to have this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
When I step in the booth, it's a beautiful occasion. Hands down, people know super shit is blazing. Sing it loud, let it echo. I got the memory lane nostalgia you can't let go. Taking it back to hip hop in its prime, but still moving forward toward the finish line.